Hello, my name is Esther OKENYE and I'm a Lee University 2020 graduate. Born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria, the concept of the very best education was the ultimate dream of my parents. Therefore, as a 6-year-old and the baby of the house, my definition of a high standard education was connoted by studying abroad. This was because I had watched my siblings migrate just as my parents wished in pursuit of excellence. Lee had become more than a place of learning to my family and more like a home. And by home, I mean home. Like my brother Emmanuel graduated from Lee in the year 2011 from the School of Science and Math. His wife Kaylee, who also, by the way, went to Lee University, graduated from the same school in 2010. My sisters, Blessing and Ruth, also graduated in 2016 from guess where? Lee University School of Business. So you can see that the standards and bars set for me in terms of college education were pretty high. But my own story was just about to unfold. As a transfer sophomore, I was sincerely nervous about my Lee University experience, especially with the expectations from my family. Not knowing what the future held, I determined that I was going to work hard and make the most out of this adventure. My Lee journey can be described by one word: maturity. Academically, as an accounting major, I was stretched and challenged within the School of Business. With the amount of knowledge that had to be processed within the accounting program and the brilliance of competitive peers, working hard in my classes became even more paramount. Being an engaged team member, participating in classes, spending late nights studying or tutoring, and completing audit projects to prepare for my career as an accountant were all significant trademarks of my growth. Socially, having about 5 jobs on campus, like student teaching, tutoring, etc., and participating in campus and academic organizations like Phi Beta Lambda, Alpha Chi, and Delta Mu Delta introduced me to so many students from the United States and all around the world with whom I have built great relationships. With each semester that passed, I saw myself being more courageous and stepping out of my comfort zone like never before. Finding friends like Miriam and Brittany, who insisted on being present and supportive, added to the richness of the whole university experience. I'm indeed super grateful to have met them. Spiritually, Lee University helped fuel the flame of my faith and love for Christ. With challenges and unexpected situations, I know better who I am in Christ and how beautiful God's plans are for me, even through my vocation and calling. My Lee University experience has been shaped by relationships and memories that will last forever. For example, my teaching assistant role in the School of Business this past 3 years was one of the highlights of my academic journey. Through connections at the School of Business, I was able to gain an internship at a non-profit organization called Mending Arrow Ranch, where I was provided with further insights into the accounting profession. I also want to make a mention of Dr. RANDYL, a professor in the School of Business. Dr. Mina became one of the many professors that made an impact in my academic journey right from the start. During the first couple of weeks after my transfer, I had gone to see him for advising, and this was when he found out that he had taught both of my sisters. To cut the long story short, Dr. Mina, you inspired me to do better than I had originally thought. So many memories I'll take in my journey to law school include that of being teased for laughing too much, along with the income tax filing experience, VITA, which I coordinated for 2 years. To all my fellow graduates and friends, I'd like to leave you with a favorite quote by Charles Reed, which says, "Sow a thought, I reap an act. Sow an act, I reap a habit. Sow a habit, I reap a character. Sow a character, I reap a destiny." As we all know, your destiny is in your hands, and you alone can decide what becomes of it. Lee would always be my alma mater, and I hope it is for you all too. To my parents, I'm so thankful for your continuous sacrifice and guidance. And to my siblings, who are all alumni of Lee University, I'm excited to be joining the alumni squad with you all. May God bless us all graduates. Congratulations.
Hello everyone. I've been asked to share with you my Lee story, which for me began long before I was born. In fact, my Lee story began the way it was supposed to end this weekend, crossing the stage at graduation. My mom graduated from Lee while she was 8 months pregnant with me, so I guess at least I have that. Regardless of where I started, there's no way that any of us could have predicted that spring break was the last time that we'd see most of our classmates and fellow graduates. It was an extremely sad and difficult ending to a lot of hard work. However, given all this time to think while I was at home during self-isolation, I got to thinking about my legacy. Specifically, I started thinking about how my Lee's story was molded by those that came before me. Namely, 2 of my great-grandparents, all 4 of my grandparents, both of my parents, my sister, most of my aunts and uncles, and even more of my cousins. I also started to think about how I was able to break out of those molds and forge my own Lee legacy. Growing up in Cleveland, I really did not want to go to Lee. My parents had been very good about letting my sister and I know that we could go wherever we wanted, even if, deep down, we know they really wanted us to go to Lee. But I, like my sister before me, decided to go to Summer Honors, which, as many of us have heard, probably too many times at this point, led to me realizing that there was no place that I'd rather be. I loved Summer Honors so much that I decided to be a part of it for 5 years in a row. I took every chance that I got to be there. During my second year as a student at Summer Honors, I took Mike Hayes' leadership class. In this particular class, we talked about legacy. He shared a quote during that class that summed it up pretty well. James Kouzes and Barry Posner said, "The legacy you leave is the life you lead." Mike challenged us to enter into a co-authorship of our lives with God. From here, I was determined to make my Lee story my own. Both of my parents were involved in Greek life, so I wasn't going to do it. So what did I do? I joined the Student Leadership Council. I dove in head first and took every opportunity I could to be involved, even if it was at the detriment to my academics, which led to me applying for and accepting a position on the cabinet of the SLC for a year. That year challenged me in so many ways. I learned how to critically think and examine myself and others for areas of growth and continued development. I also learned about the depth and complexity of God's grace and forgiveness. This incredible experience brought me closer to more and more people in more and more areas of campus. I ended up finding a deep appreciation for the Greek community in those first 2 years that translated into a longing for the types of relationships that I saw as so common there. Long story short, I ended up doing the very thing that I was determined not to do at Lee, Greek life. I joined Tau Kappa Omega in the fall of 2018, and it was that decision that gave me a sense of brotherhood and community that I had not yet experienced in my life. I say all of this, partially, to provide you with a context for my Lee journey, but mostly I say it to show how my approach to building my legacy changed from the beginning to the end of my Lee journey. I started out doing whatever I could to break out from under the expectations professors and peers had for me because of my name, but learned over time that the only way for me to truly build a legacy that I was proud of was to live authentically and strive for integrity in my day-to-day life. I could not be more proud to have been a Lee student, and I am thankful to every person along the way that made my journey possible, from the psychology faculty to the student development staff, and from the SLC to TKO. It's because of you all that I've made it here and have the ability to go so much further. Thank you.
Class of 2020, I'm so honored to be able to share my experience with you today. So thank you to whoever thought me speaking was a good idea. I just hope everybody is staying safe during this crazy time, and of course, wearing your masks. I live approximately an hour and 15 minutes away from Lee and had never heard of it until the summer going into my senior year of high school. That summer, I began getting recruited to play basketball at Lee. After a quick tour around campus on a golf cart ride I didn't think I was going to survive, thank you, Coach Spangler, Lee began to pull at my heart. I hadn't even been into any of the buildings on that visit, but the beauty from the outside was enough to captivate me. I came on campus 2 more times before committing to play basketball for the next 4 years. Those visits allowed me to tour campus, meet my soon-to-be teammates, and experience what it would be like to be a student at Lee. But the selling point, like any other student touring Lee University, the on-campus Chick-fil-A. I mean, come on. No, but I just want to take this opportunity to thank Coach Rowe, Coach Spangler, and the rest of the coaching staff for taking a chance on me and allowing me to be a part of such a special basketball program. Coming out of high school, I had no idea what I wanted to major in, but I like to talk a lot, so I figured, let's try communications. I took a tour of the communications building and was amazed by all the opportunities I could have within this major. During my junior year, I was offered a chance to work with media services. I took that opportunity not because I could learn so much behind the scenes in the media world, but because they paid me. I'm just kidding, but in all seriousness, I just want to thank all the media services team for lending me that opportunity. I also want to thank all of my professors that ever taught me at Lee. I appreciate your guidance, your wisdom, and your patience. It should be Teacher Appreciation Week every week of the year. I was fortunate enough to have an instant family coming on the campus. Being a part of the women's basketball team shaped the majority of my experiences here. Last year, actually 1 year ago this week, my team and I took our cross-cultural trip to the Dominican Republic. This is going to sound really cliche, and I realize that, but I'm going to say it anyways. This trip changed my life. It honestly did. I was able to play the sport I love in a country I've never been before. I was able to share the Word of God with people that may have never heard it before. I was able to make new relationships with people in the Dominican that I still stay in contact with today. I was able to grow, not only as an individual, but we were able to grow as a team. If it wasn't for Lee, I wouldn't have gotten to experience that. And for that, I'm grateful. We all try to plan for the future in high school. What college we're going to attend, what kind of job we're going to have, how many dogs we're going to have, the usual life questions. Now, I'm not going to tell you what my plans were coming out of high school, but I can tell you that they were far from what they are now. I say that in a good way. Not that my original plans were bad, but God knew the plans He had for me. God knew in sending me to Lee that so many doors would open that I did not know possible. Though my senior year here at Lee, like many others, did not go as planned. I truly believe God has something extraordinary planned for the class of 2020. Now I can't end my speech without first thanking my wonderful family, Mom, Dad, Mama, Pappy, even my brother, and the rest of my support system. Thank you so much for everything you have done for me. I couldn't have been more blessed with such a great family and community. And to all my fellow graduates, happy graduation day. I wish you all the best.
Well, by the looks of things, I'm officially a college graduate. If you are wondering where I'm standing, I'm in the sanctuary of Westwood Hills Church of God, located in Gainesville, Florida, where I'm the Christian Education Director and the student pastor. And the reason for me telling you this is because without the great institute of Lee University, I will not have the opportunity that I have now. My Lee journey has been an experience to say the least. This was not just a period in my life that others has also experienced, but this was so life-altering for me. So much has happened to me in the past 4 years while I was at Lee. My Lee story may not be jaw-dropping or on the edge of your seat good, but to me, this was a time that I will never forget. So how did I get to Lee? There was a time about 4 or 5 years ago where I had a state youth director in Pennsylvania who was hosting a youth rally. And when the altar call was happening, I asked permission, could I go and pray for someone? He told me, yeah, you don't need to ask permission to go and do what God has laid on your heart. So after praying for him, me and the youth director, we had just dialogue, just conversation, and he eventually asked me where was I going to school, and I told him I didn't know because I was only a junior in high school. I didn't really think about it yet. He said, you should look into Lee University. So I said, okay. I searched it up online, saw it was a good place online, but I had to visit for myself. So when the Pope was in Philadelphia, me and my mom picked up our stuff and went down to Cleveland, Tennessee to visit Lee University. And by the way, Physical Plant, you do such a great job of upkeeping this campus for those that are visiting and for those that are already here. I believe that God wanted me to come to Lee University. I have had several experiences while I was at Lee University that has impacted me for the rest of my life. One of them was becoming an RA in BOB, and B4 was my floor. This was my sophomore year of college. I loved being an RA. I had so many residents that I still keep in contact with till today. We text, we talk on the phone, we talk about how our lives are going, and we talk about just different ideas and our future plans that we have. And even though I'm not over them as their resident, they still look up to me and I still look up to them. And they have just been great people while my time was at Lee University and even during the time that I have now. Even the residential partners that I had, the RAs on different floors, and my RD has shaped me into being the person that I am today. Being at Lee taught me a lot of lessons. One big lesson that I've learned that even though I'm on a Christian campus where Christ is King and CONN is now Chancellor, not everyone is on the same spiritual level as each other. Being patient and waiting on God was a huge lesson that I had to learn. And if I can remember one lesson that I learned in the classroom, it was by Dr. Bill Effler. He taught me that unchurched people would trust you before they trust the Jesus that you serve. That lesson is still sticking with me till today. I had a lot of challenges while I was at Lee University. I was battling with depression. Anger had crept back into my life. My grades were slipping. I didn't want to talk to people. I distanced myself. And for the first time in my life, I went to visit a counseling center. Though I felt embarrassed, I didn't know what I was going to do. However, the people that Lee University fosters, creates, and develops, the faculty and the staff that are there, they helped me get through my hard times. They helped me, they talked with me, they made sure I was doing good. And with them and the grace of God, I was able to get through the hard times that I was going through. Some of my favorite moments were just walking on campus at nighttime when it was a cool breeze and walking with the residents that I had or the friends that I had that cultivated me and helped me to just have better thoughts and to just have a good time with the community that was around me. It was fun and it was a great time that I would cherish always. There's several people that I like to give thanks to. One of them is my mother. My mother has been my backbone throughout my entire years at Lee University. Through the phone calls, the text messages, the sending me things, and just being there for me through technology meant so much to me. My mom was 10.5 hours away from me when I was at Lee University, but she still made it seem like she was right around the corner and I could talk to her whenever I needed to. Another person was my uncle, Bishop Gary Sean Mullings. He lives further away. He lives in New Jersey, but he was somebody that called me in the mornings to make sure I was up for class. Even when I didn't think I was gonna go to college, he pushed me and he told me that I could do it, and he was there for me through my entire journey. Though he wasn't there for me for my entire journey at Lee, Dr. Walker, from the moment he came onto Lee University's campus, he has been such a great help and a great friend to me. He's given me advice, he's spent time with me, and he's just allowed me to talk to him as somebody that needed guidance and somebody that needed help in this Lee University journey. Last and certainly not least, to the special guy that I would like to give the utmost thanks to is Dr. Jimmy Harper. And though he's not a full-time faculty at Lee University anymore, he still cultivated my Lee University experience and helped me become the man that I am today. He wasn't just one of my professors, but he was a father figure to me. He was a friend to me, and he spent a lot of time with me. We went to baseball games together, had lunch together, and he just talked to me as if I needed to be talked to and needed to grow as a man. So Lee University, thank you for everything that you have done. Thank you for all that you have been to me. Thank you for helping me. To all the faculty, to all the staff, and to everyone that is a part of the Lee University bubble, you have helped cultivate me and helped me become the man that I am today. And like I said, without the opportunities that I have now, it would not have been possible with Lee University. So thank you and congratulations to the spring class of 2020.
My Lee story started 32 years ago in the Cross Hall lobby, fall 1988, when my parents met. And while I went through a very brief but stubborn phase of, I'm not going to Lee because I want to do my own thing, I always felt drawn here. So as my high school experience ended, I followed the paths that my parents, aunt and uncle, brother, and all my cousins had walked to Lee University, desperate to make it just as much my home as it was theirs. I've always been a perfectionist, so in an ideal world, I would have moved into my freshman dorm knowing exactly who I was, where I wanted to be, and what I wanted to do, totally put together. But what kind of story would that have been? Instead, I was intimidated by strangers and feeling more than a little lost and overwhelmed. I won't dwell on the nights that I wondered if a college that wasn't 10 hours away would have been a better choice for me, or the moments I had more than my fair share of coffee just to stay awake after the long nights studying. And I really hate coffee. But I will say that those times are what pushed me further into my community at Lee than I could have ever wandered on my own. And that has made all the difference. As a member of Delta Zeta Tau and a little sister in Pi Kappa Pi, I quickly learned not to hide from my community when I didn't have it all together. I felt seen for my accomplishments and my failures, yet both were met with encouragement, grace, and most importantly, an urging to never become complacent. My time with these groups taught me to ask the hard questions that don't need to be answered aloud all the time, but they should still be asked. And as my support system continued to grow at Lee, I found myself less intimidated by the idea of imperfection and more anxious to learn by doing. Fortunately, working in the Student Development Office for Great Strides and Parade of Favorites cultivated my fears of letting people down into a desire for excellence, but also a humility for admitting my mistakes. And I use the word cultivate on purpose because that's not always a fun process. I was challenged to face insecurities so rooted within me that I had started calling them personality traits. And instead of trying to earn approval by constantly producing, it became more about doing a few things well and actually asking for help when I needed it. I was corrected without feeling like I'd become a massive disappointment. I learned the value of constructive criticism, how to take it with grace, and use it to do better. And while I learned so much during my first 2.5 years at Lee, I still had these moments where I felt like I was borrowing it from my family. I loved to be a part of this tradition, but I was still searching for something that pushed me out on my own 2 feet. So when the time came for a global perspectives trip, I went on the UK semester abroad. I was in England for 3 months without my family around every corner. It was on that trip that I stopped trying to earn my place at Lee, according to some self-imposed expectations because of my family's experiences. The first couple of times I came home on breaks freshman year and sophomore and most of junior, I spent most of the time quietly listening or sleeping. My mom used to joke and say it was because I was always on at school, trying to make the most of it and not waste a minute. But after my trip to Cambridge, I didn't come home as tired. Not because I was getting more sleep than before, but because I was taking true rest in my community at Lee. I quit trying to fit into the story of those before me, and I just started valuing my community for what it meant to me. No matter what part of the past 4 years I focus on, I am reminded of how right Lee University was for me and how vital it has been to my story. And as I've been reflecting on a truly spectacular 4 years and a very odd ending, one thing my friend Nick said when he graduated last May has stuck with me. He said, "I am so much more thankful for the time that I've had here than I am sad to have to go." And that's the best way to put it, I think. I am more thankful for what I've learned and the space and care that Lee University has given me to grow than I am sad to have to leave, because this is what we've been preparing for. And I really do feel ready. So thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is TORRY and I'm currently a pastor in Orlando, Florida. This May I graduated with my master's in business administration through Lee's online program. However, my Lee story didn't start online, it actually started way before that. I was born into one of those Church of God Lee families. Now, they don't tell you this when you're young, but it's kind of like being born into the mafia. It's a life that chooses you and you can't ever really get away from it. But growing up, I knew that Lee was the place for me, so about this time, 5 years ago, I was packing up my Jeep and hopping in the car with my parents and made the drive from South Carolina to Cleveland, Tennessee to begin a journey that would actually change my life for the better in every possible way. When I arrived at Lee, I wasn't nervous, but I didn't know what to expect. And for my first year on campus, I was a yes man. I tried to say yes to everything that I could, meet as many people as I could, seize every opportunity that came my way. And looking back, it turned out it was one of the best decisions that I made, because in every circle, no matter how different those circles were, I felt like I was being shaped and changed into a better version of myself. And in my opinion, this is really part of the magic that makes Lee so great, that it's not just a place with higher learning, it's a place of higher learning. Every event, every chapel, every club, they're all formative. And this is what makes the Lee experience so special. While the May and summer commencement was something that I was looking forward to, I do understand the decision and the need to cancel, and I just want to say a special thank you to the leadership at Lee now, who I know have been working around the clock to find a way to still make this moment meaningful. And even though I'm not in my fancy robe or standing in front of the forum, it's an honor to have this moment to just reflect on Miley's story. And in light of this pandemic, I'd actually like to just share a few lessons that I learned at Lee that I believe helped prepare me for the season that we're in. The first lesson was too easy. It was how to social distance. All it takes is one encounter with a lobby couple to learn this skill, because ain't nobody want to be around that. And I hope and pray that during this season, some of you lobby lovers are tying the knot or at the very least learning to leave some room for Jesus. Lesson number 2, no matter what anyone else says, there is nothing wrong with hoarding toilet paper. 2 rolls might be enough for some, but as for me and my house, now before you judge us, you need to know that we did try to ration. But at the end of the day, the risk was just too high, so we started collecting. Single ply only goes so far. Lesson number 3, how to connect with those you love when you can't be together. Let's face it, one of the hardest parts of going off to school is being away from your family. And at first, this independence is sweet and it gives us some time to get to know ourselves, but it doesn't take long before we start missing home. And it was at Lee that I really formed the habits of calling home and staying in contact with friends over the summer and learning to really connect with those I love when being together just wasn't possible. Lesson number 4, don't be afraid to try new things. During my time at Lee, I played an ultimate Frisbee game that lasted 90 hours. I enrolled in a karate class for 2 days, and trust me, that was more than enough. I traveled to new places and I tried new hobbies, and what I learned through all of this was that when I treated every day as an opportunity to learn something new, life became more of an adventure. Lastly, and most importantly, lesson number 5, when the going gets tough, figure it out. During my time at Lee, I received an opportunity to work as a student worker in the office of President CONN. Sometime later, that student worker position turned into a full-time position, and what I didn't know is when I started that job that this would go on to become the single most meaningful and formative opportunity that I would have at Lee. There's a saying about kids who spend a lot of time growing up in church, and that is that they cut their teeth on the pews. Well, I just want to apologize in advance to Dr. Walker because I'm pretty sure I've left teeth marks all over your new office. Working under Dr. CONN was an experience that I will forever be grateful for. It was in that office that I learned that a team can be a family, what visionary leadership looks like, how to treat people in an organization and in the community. But my greatest takeaway from my time in the office was a principle from a book called The Go-Getter. And everyone in the office was required to read it, and it was really part of our rite of passage. And the principle of this book is that when circumstances in life make your goal difficult to attain, you figure it out anyways. And I'm so thankful for the 3 years that I had in the office where I had the opportunity to work alongside people who made this philosophy part of their DNA. People like Stephanie Taylor, Andrea Campbell Brown, David Wallace, Nicole Seath, and many more. So now in life, when interruptions come along, whether it's a national lockdown or just a minor inconvenience, I know that with the right team on my side, we can figure this thing out. Words don't do justice to describe how grateful I am for my time at Lee. It was here that I met some of my closest friends and made some of my favorite memories, and it was here that I married the most beautiful woman to ever step foot on that campus. I believe in the Lee experience, and I thank God for my opportunity to be a part of something that has blessed the lives of so many. Thanks for taking a moment to listen to my Lee story, and God bless.